Okay, so today's video we're going to go through how to solve one-step equations. So some key concepts for solving one-step equations. First, you want to identify the operation being asked, meaning are we adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing? Once you do that, then you're going to perform the opposite operation to both sides. We need to make sure we pay close attention to the signs and then rewrite the equation if needed. And then lastly, we're going to substitute back in for our variable to check to see if our answer is correct. So let's take a look at some examples here. So the first one we see is 56 equals 14n. So the first thing we can do is we said we can always rewrite if needed. So we can always write this as 14n equals 56. So this here and this here are the exact same things, okay? Now, we want to identify our operation. So we know that this one, in this case, is multiplication. So it's 14 times n equals 56. So again, if we're thinking about we need to do the opposite to both sides. So the opposite of multiplication is division. So I'm going to divide both sides by 14. And when I do that on this side, let's change colors here. This is going to make 1, meaning 1n, meaning we have our variable by itself. On the other side, we're just going to divide. So 56 divided by 14. So in this case, n is going to equal 4. And again, if we went back and did our last step was to substitute this back in for n to see if this is true. So if we go back up here and we write, so 56 equals 14 times 4, is this true? Meaning, is 14 times 4 equal 56? And in this case, 56 equals 56. So we know our answer to be true. So n equals 4. Okay, if we go and take a look at this one right here, again, we can always rewrite. So if it's helpful to see, I can also rewrite this one as n plus 5 equals 14. Identifying the operation that's happening, and if we look here, we see an addition sign. So in this case, we're adding. And if we know that the next step is to figure out what the opposite of that is, well, the opposite of addition is subtraction. So to both sides, this case, I am going to subtract 5 and subtract 5 over here. We have to do that to both sides so that we maintain balance. And again, so what happens here is 5 minus 5 makes a 0 pair and cancels themselves out. So on the left side, I'm just left with n, 1n, which is what we want. On the right side, I have 14 minus 5, and 14 minus 5 is 9. And so again, the last step here to check to see if this is true is to substitute back in. So 14 equals 9. So 9 was what we found for n. So I plug that right back in for n, plus 5. If I add this side up here, is 9 plus 5 equal 14? In this case, yes. 14 equals 14. So the left side equals the right side, and our answer of 9 is correct. All right, next one. This is a good one. In this case, I'm going to just rewrite it one way. So if you notice up top, we switched it. So we put the variable on the left side. We put the variable on the left side. In this case, I'm going to leave it on this side, but I am going to rewrite this one. Okay? So how we could rewrite this on this side is negative 11 equals, and all I'm going to do is flip-flop my order. So it's going to be x, and I look at the sign in front here, and this is a negative sign or a subtraction sign. So we can write this as x minus 5. So if the idea is to find or figure out what operation's happening, well, this is subtraction, and I know that the opposite of subtraction is addition. So I need to add 5 to both sides to maintain balance. Because whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other, okay? So again, on this side, these two make a 0 pair and cancel out, and I'm left with just x, which is exactly what we want. On the left side, this is where the paying attention to signs is, we have to be careful. So we have a negative 11 plus 5. So we have two integers with opposite signs. So when we have opposite signs, we subtract the two numbers. So if I start with that part, so 11 minus 5 is 6. And then to figure out whether it's positive or negative, I say, okay, well, which one of these two numbers is furthest from 0? And in this case, the negative 11 is furthest from 0. So our answer is going to be negative 6. Last step, now I plug it back in. And I'm going to plug it back into the original. So I say negative 11 equals negative 5 plus negative 6. So I have two numbers here. They're both negative. I'm just going to add these two together, and they're going to stay negative. So 5 plus 6, well, that's 11. If they're both negative, they're going to stay negative. So negative 11 equals negative 11. Our answer of negative 6 is correct. So this is a good one just so that you can see that you can rewrite it on this side. You can flip-flop it to the other side, meaning we could have put this as negative 5 plus x equals negative 11. We could have wrote this as x minus 5 equals negative 11. So we can rewrite if we need to. All right, so we've seen an example of just about all of them. The last one right here, we look at this one over here, and we read this as 1m over 11. Or if we remember that the fraction bar in this case means division. So m divided by 11. A number divided by 11 equals negative 5. Okay? So if I think about the opposite of division is multiplication. So in this case, I need to multiply both sides by 11, or we can think of it as 11 over 1. Okay? So whatever I do to one side, I need to do to the other. And what happens on the left side is if I were to combine these, and actually I can combine these, and I'll write it down here. So 11 times m is 11m. 1 times 11 is 11. Well, if I look here, 11m divided by 11 is just going to equal 1m. So that's how that happens. So basically what happens is these combine to make 1m. Okay? So if we finish this, we end up with m equals negative 5 times 11. So the only thing we have to remember is that a negative times a positive is a negative. So in this case, it should be negative 55. And then the last step is to substitute it back in to check to see if that works. So I need to take this number and put it right in up here. So is negative 55 divided by 11 equal to negative 5? Well, 11 goes into 55 5 times, and since it's a negative divided by a positive, it does make negative 5, meaning negative 5 equals negative 5. So our answer checks out. Okay? So let's go back up and review here. So some key concepts for solving one step. Identifying the operation being asked, meaning is it adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing. Do the opposite of that operation to both sides. So super important, it has to be to both sides. Paying close attention to the signs and rewriting the equation if needed. And then lastly, substitute in for the variable to check to see if your answer is correct. In our next video, we're going to take a look at how we solve two-step equations. Hopefully this is helpful.